it's a fair question. Why did Robert Buckland not bring this up earlier? Why has it come to light several days after she defected? And that is party politics. I think Keir Starmer's got this one wrong. I think there is so much baggage attached to Natalie Elphicke that the disadvantages of allowing her into the Labour Party outweigh the advantages that Paul was just describing. And I tell you, a lot of Labour MPs are of that view too, and particularly will be after the latest allegations. What do you think? 0345 6060 973. Great coup, as Paul was just claiming this is. Savvy political decision, smart party politics, or a sign of a lack of courage, a lack of principle even, or just a lack of judgment in allowing someone who is clearly trouble and has a history of causing problems into his party? I think needlessly. This comes in from Steve. Ben, stop pushing another non-story from the dreadful so-called newspaper. You're sounding like a proper Tory. Steve, if you think a sitting MP trying to lobby the Justice Secretary to directly interfere in the criminal trial of her sex offender husband is a non-story, then I don't know, my friend, what planet you are living on. And I suspect if this was a sitting Tory MP rather than a new Labour MP, you'd probably be saying this is the biggest scandal since Watergate. Let's not let party politics interfere here. Any MP trying to lobby for any interference in the independent judicial process, particularly when it comes to their own husband, and particularly when it comes to allegations of sex offences, is serious. It's very, very serious indeed. Keir Starmer, as the former head of the Crown Prosecution Service, won't need telling. I suspect he's feeling pretty uncomfortable this morning that that's what his latest MP is being accused of. A lot of Labour MPs are feeling more than uncomfortable. They're absolutely livid that this woman has been allowed in. And you can see why, can't you? Even if you don't object to the principle, even if you say, look, I don't like it, it's party politics, the guy needs to win the election, if that helps, fair enough. Even if you don't object to the principle, surely the fact that this is now backfiring, isn't it, and creating more negative headlines and press for Labour than positive, doesn't that suggest it was a mistake? I talked to Josh in Oxford this morning. Josh, good morning.
Ben, pointed out that the story actually is, why has it taken 4 years for the Conservatives to reveal this fact? And more importantly, how many more cover-ups do the Conservatives have that they are not? Because remember, Richie did stand on the doorstep at Number 10 talking about integrity. So I think this should be the British media. Let's find out what's been hidden from us by this dying government.
Josh, that's not the story here. It's a story, and you're right. You're right to say, of
that's
course.
Absolutely the story, because I just said it's the story, Ben.
It's not the story.
Ben, what you need to focus on.
So, Josh, you're more interested in why Robert Buckland didn't speak out against a colleague than you are about a current member of party trying to interfere in judicial processes.
So, can I just say? His achievement is to always have the news focus and news cycle.
Whose
on
achievement?
Him. He doesn't care if it. He doesn't care if it's negative press or it's positive. And that Labour is sucking the oxygen from all the other political parties by having media focus on them. It doesn't matter. This was a wonderful tactic. It was a brilliant move. It was straight out of Donald Trump's playbook. It doesn't matter.
That's a positive thing?
Absolutely positive, because you are focused on them. Donald Trump has proven that. It doesn't matter how bad the news is.
But we don't live in the US, do we? Keir Starmer is not Donald Trump.
He's using the same tactics.
And that doesn't worry you at all. That Keir Starmer, in your view, I actually disagree.
You live in, because the media buy into it.
Keir Starmer is now aping Donald Trump, and you think that's a good thing?
Ben, you just don't like the fact that you had the wall in your eyes. You don't like the fact that happening in our country, that tactics that are used in America and around the world are being used in this election. Get real.
Josh, I think you need to get real. I think if you think the big story here is why Robert Buckland, now a backbencher, didn't speak up, you're absolutely right. It's a fair point. Robert Buckland will face questions. Why have you only come out with this 3.5 years later? Absolutely fair point.
It's not giving them airtime.
Josh, It's not the main point
Labour
here.
airtime. It doesn't matter. Labour wants to suck the oxygen from the other.
Okay, Labour got a lot. Labour got a lot of oxygen under Jeremy Corbyn, didn't it? There's all the coverage about the anti-Semitism story. It didn't do much good, does it? The idea that any publicity is good publicity when it comes to party politics in this country, it's not true, I'm afraid. It just isn't true. That's why the Tories, all the coverage of Partygate, all the coverage of sleaze and scandals and MPs doing what they shouldn't be doing, they have had so much focus on their misdoings and their misdeeds in recent years, and that's why they're 20% behind in the polls. If being in the media won you elections, the Tories would be 20% ahead in the polls because there has been so much scandal. But they're not, because that's not how it works in this country. And my God, thank God it doesn't. Thank God that what happens to Donald Trump and the way he behaves wouldn't work here, in my view. Come back to your thoughts on that in a moment. Was Keir Starmer right to allow Natalie Elphicke into the party? Or actually, was that caller right? Is Josh right? That's exactly what Keir Starmer was trying to do. Suck the oxygen out of the Tories, get all the media attention and win the next election.
The solution to this sort of situation is this. Whenever an MP changes from one party to another party, there should be an instant by-election in that constituency. And that obviously would apply regardless of which way they switch. So, if it was a Labour MP who switched to becoming a Conservative, the same principle would apply.
They just wouldn't do it, Duncan, would they? They just, let's be honest, they just wouldn't defect. They'd rather keep their seats.
Well, the point is that they would then have to continue to support the party they were claiming to support.
How do you mean?
Wouldn't they?
How do you mean?
Well, if they're not changing, then they are remaining in the same party, and they'll be subject to the whip and so on. I mean, if they were to continue to vote with the Conservatives, another possible alternative would be to think, well, I'm not very happy about this situation, so I'll resign my seat.
I think you're imbuing MPs with a hell of a lot of principle here, Duncan. I fear some of it might be misplaced.
They should act according to principle. I don't make any apology for saying
No,
that.
it's fair enough. Set the bar high. I suspect that the reality is if you say any defecting MP has to trigger a by-election, you wouldn't get many defecting MPs because they would rather not rock the boat and keep their seat. Maybe that's cynical of me. I fear that's the reality, though. Duncan, thank you for the call. Let's go to Richard in Brentford. Richard, morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on. Do you think that Keir Starmer knew about this before he made the decision?
Do I think he knew about the allegations that she tried to interfere in this trial?
Yes.
I suspect not, Richard. I suspect not.
Okay, because the way you're presenting this is that he did. That he made a ridiculous decision because of this. He now knows about it, and I think what matters is what he does now.
That's a fair point.
And you're dismissing people who are saying why the Tories sat on this for 4 years. But, if you're so...
Sorry, Richard, just brief. I don't think you can say the Tories sat on it. You might say Robert Buckland sat on it. We don't know whether anyone else knew about it.
Do you know, I doubt it. I think he's a man of principle. I've had dealings with him, and I think he's a very honourable man.
I think he's one of the more honourable MPs, for sure.
Yeah, and I'd be very surprised if he didn't mention it to somebody. And don't forget, we're talking about Boris Johnson here.
Maybe.
This is the man he may have spoken to.
Yep.
But, if you're so angry or worked up about Starmer when he probably didn't even know about this,
I'm not angry about it.
Well, it's coming across that Starmer's made a terrible mistake.
I think he has made a mistake. But
he hasn't if he didn't know.
I think that's a very fair point, how much he knew. I think he knew enough to know that Natalie Elphicke had a lot of baggage with her. He knew about the comments saying that her husband's victims were making false allegations, that they'd just been attracted to him because he was a successful man. That's enough, I think, in itself to disqualify him from being a Labour MP. Did he know about these specific allegations? I think that's a really fair point, Richard. But he knew that she had been suspended by Parliament for, again, inappropriately lobbying on behalf of her husband. There was enough there that he did know that I think this is a mistake.
Okay, well, I have to accept your knowledge, and if that's right, then yes.
She was suspended from Parliament for a day after using parliamentary-headed notepaper to write to the judge who was presiding over her husband's trial. I mean, how much more evidence do you need that this woman is trouble?
Okay, but I really do think it's a billion times worse that this has been sat on by whoever in the Conservative Party. It just shows them up, doesn't it?
I think that's bad if they did sit on it. I don't think it's worse. I don't think it's worse than trying to get your husband off or trying to lobby for more lenient treatment, potentially.
No. I'm talking about Starmer. I'm talking about Starmer.
Sorry. You think that Robert Buckland coming forward now rather than at the time is worse than Keir Starmer letting her into the party?
I think it's horrendous, but as I say, I doubt if it was him. I think he brought it to somebody's attention, and it's the party higher up that sat on it.
I think that's really, really reasonable point, Richard. Big questions for Boris Johnson and the others who were in senior positions in the Tory party. Did Robert Buckland make them aware of what, at the time, Natalie Elphicke had said to him? According to him, important to say Elphicke denies it. She says it was nonsense. Labour Party spokesman saying Natalie Elphicke totally rejects that characterisation of the meeting. And they say too, if Robert Buckland had any genuine concerns, he should have raised them at the time rather than making claims to the newspapers now. That's also a fair point, isn't it? Did Robert Buckland raise these questions at the time? And if not, why on earth not?
Jonathan Ashworth should hang his head in shame, because what I'm telling you is now in the public domain. It has been since Charlie Elphicke's trial.
Right.
4 Conservative MPs and Natalie Elphicke herself wrote to the judge to give a character reference for Charlie Elphicke as the trial was ongoing.
Right, yes.
So Jonathan Ashworth, I've been talking, Jonathan Ashworth is trying to rewrite history.
Well, you're certainly right, Robert, to say that it is a matter of public record that Natalie Elphicke defended her husband publicly and indeed has been accused of undermining Mr. Elphicke's accusers.
She didn't defend her husband. She wrote with 4 Tory MPs to give the judge a character reference. This is the point. This is the stuff. Never mind she defended her husband. That's to be expected. But when his appeal failed, she went in the courtroom next door to tell him that she was divorcing him.
Mm. So you're not satisfied with what Mr. Ashworth said, Robert? We can
He's
deduce.
got to retract the statement where he says she's apologised for things she said about the people who accused her husband.
Do you think that the Labour Party should investigate these accusations?
Absolutely, without any question. This is a thing. To go back to Diane Abbott, she's been kicked out for a while now, but suddenly you've got somebody who defended her husband in a rape trial, which is what it was. It wasn't sexual assault.
Yeah.
She's defended him, and other people is allowing this to
She
go
has, in
forward.
fairness, she has publicly, since then, she did distance herself from him. But yes, this is, there's no doubt that certainly at the time during the trial, she defended him. And as I say, has been accused of undermining the testimony of his accusers.
But you also tried to influence the judge. This is the massive thing that's been allowed to pass by.
Do you think this undermines, Robert, do you think this undermines Keir Starmer's claim to be a politician of integrity?
It has, yes. Has he not got a research department that can find out this stuff?
Well, as you say, much of this was a matter of public record. Not the Sunday Times stuff, of course. This is a new revelation this morning.
Well, the thing is, I mean, if they're going to take someone on board, don't forget there's been so many people now who've suddenly changed their tack so that they're saying things and doing other things. Or I'm a good Labour politician, and then they turn out not to be. Or they say things where...
But Robert, what do you make... Well, what about the... You could say, well, hang on a minute. Why didn't Robert Buckland, who was Lord Chancellor at the time, come forward and let the Conservatives know about this at the time? Maybe she should have lost the whip at the time. Why was she allowed to stand as a Conservative MP at the time? You can understand why, perhaps on the Labour side, people would say, this is all just really fishy and stinks.
Well, it is all fishy and stinks because, like I say, nobody's doing any research into the backgrounds of people. Suddenly, the last few months, we've had people trolling through Facebook and social media to find out if they can get rid of people out of the Labour Party because of something they did on Facebook 2 years ago.
All right, Robert in Gateshead, grateful to you. Lee is in Watford. Good morning, Lee.
Morning, Lewis. Look, huge fan and newsagents rocks, right? But,
bless you. Thank you.
And welcome to Sunday. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think you and the commentators are just missing the play here. I think it's absolute genius from Starmer. Absolute genius.
Okay, tell me why.
I don't know who his advisors are, if it's Healy or Gray or whatever, but they get to milk this for another week, maybe. Everyone comes at Natalie, including the Tory press, right? All this stuff comes out. It all gets exposed. Starmer looks like an absolute integrity hero when he withdraws the whip, probably by Friday at this rate, by the looks of it.
But doesn't he look... I sort of see that, Lee, but isn't the accusation then that his political judgment was just extremely poor? That he basically entirely needlessly let this ticking time bomb into the Labour Party. Lots of Labour MPs were deeply unhappy about it, and it just calls into question his judgment and his integrity.
No, the judgment's absolutely perfect because you get 2 weeks of utterly shaming Sunak and supporting her for the last 3 or 4 years as a Conservative MP. This is all while she was a serving Conservative MP, remember? And then he gets to compare her to Ragg, Menzies, Benton, right? And stands there and says, "We're a party of integrity. We kick these people out as soon as we find out stuff."
All right, Lee.
Sunak sat on Menzies for 4 months.